Okay, here we go. We need to get our character in here and animating. So we have 3 different Blender files. You're going to need to export each one as a FBX. So come over to your armature, right click and select hierarchy. Then over to File, Export FBX. Make sure you say only selected objects and make sure your settings match this down here. And you can export this. And I would rename each one according to your character and name. So you're going to end up with 3 FBX files here: moth idle.fbx, walk fbx, or run, and then jump. I already have those here in the folder. I'm going to come back to Unity. Again, please start from the provided project, and you want to open up a scene called Playground. Actually, you know what? We're going to duplicate this scene so that you have it to go back with. And so I'll come over here and save this, but then we'll go to Scene so that it only shows scenes, and there it is. And I'm going to Control C that, and then in Assets here, let's delete that and come back up here and Control V and refer to this as, last name, third person game. Alright, so that the other one remains untouched. And I'll open that one up. I can tell it's right here, and we're good. Okay, and if we look at this is the character right here. Character has 3 things: idle, run, and jump. And so if you were to hit play right now, you should be able to use your WASD keys in the mouse. If I can get my mouse to click in the window to move that character around. There we go. Actually, I'll take the armature and put it over here. So the third person character here is the thing that's going to allow the actual player capsule to move and then sync with all of the different animations that you have. So now with that provided, there we go. We're moving. Jump. Okay, and we don't need any of the sound effects right now, so I'm actually going to just put this down at 0, and I'll just remove that one there. Okay, and now we need to bring in our player, and I'll come over here to where the files are and import all of those like so. And you'll see that it's 3 different objects down here. I'm going to use the idle as the base. If you unfold, you'll see that it's the object, and then these are the animation clips. You may have more than one here in your file, and the one that probably says armature action is the one that we want to deal with. And so if we select that one and we were to hit play, we can see it right there, which is what we want. And so I can drag idle in here, the object, and now it's in the scene. That's good, but it won't play anything right now because it's just the mesh, none of the animation. So I'm going to come up here and make it a child of the player armature, and then I'll come over here and reset it. And if your mesh is way too big or way too small, you need to click here and go to model and scale it here. Don't scale it in the transform. That's not going to work. You want to scale it here so that it's roughly the size of the guide character there. And if it needs to be rotated, you select this and you can rotate the top level of it there. Great. Now we want to get some animations happening on our character. And so this one is the idle, and we can drag this onto the character here, onto the character here, and I'm going to go here and let go. Now you should see that the character has an animator, and if you were to select it, we see that the animator is over here, and this animation clip has appeared right there. And we need to stay organized, so we want these things named correctly. I'm going to select this and relabel it moth idle so that that's correct. And then I'm going to make sure that if I select the idle here, go back up, and I go to animation, that the idle is set to loop. There we go. And now we can bring in the other ones that we need. Actually, let's test first. So anytime you make a change here, it'll ask you to save it, and I can save it. So right now, the character should move around with the armature, but it will just do the idle, and the idle should loop. If we hit play, there we go. We see our character is doing the idle, and the guide character does the animations, but ours just stays in idle. Let's get the other animations in here. I'll go to the run, unfold, grab this one, which is going to be the run. I can test it. Let's make sure that it loops. So I'll come over here to animation, set it to loop, and apply. And now I can not drag the whole object in here, but just drag the animation clip in. Select it and change it to moth run. There we go. And then I want to make sure that works. So I'll right click and say make set as default. And so now if I were to play, the character should be in the run. Even when it moves around, just stays in the looping run. Okay, good. So far so good. Now we'll get the jump in here. Unfold, same thing. The jump we do not want to loop, so we're not going to check that box. We're going to grab this and bring it in, and we're going to set it to rename it to moth jump. There we go. And good. We've got all of our animations that we need into the animator there, and that's pretty good. Okay, so let's get this set up. We want our idle to be the default, so right click and say set as default, so that if we're not doing anything, we go to idle. And you can look at the other player armature of what needs to happen here. We need to be able to transition from idle to run both ways, and then we need to be able to jump either when we're in idle or when we're in run. So there's the jump right there. And so if I come back to our character, let's see here. I don't think that's anything important. The error was just throwing up. Hopefully not. Yeah, we're not getting anything. That's fine. Okay, great. So let's set these up. We need to communicate from the top level down to here. And so now in the player armature up here, the third-person controller script has a player character object, and you need to provide your player there. So I need to drag moth into there and save. I usually save before I drag something into those, because when you drag something into a field, it does seem to be kind of crashy. Now I'm going to set up some parameters. If you look at the armature up here, what we just did there is we referenced our object so that the variables that are created here and updated can be sent to our animated character. And those variables are speed and jump. So the speed that the character is going, we're going to use that to transition between standing and running, and then jump so that we know when our character jumps. These are two different types of data The speed is a float, which is just a floating point decimal number. Any number with a decimal point is a float number, floating point number. And then the jump is a bool or boolean, just a true false. It's just when did we press the jump button, and then it'll continue to be true while we're in the air. But if we go back to ours, you'll see that we don't have those parameters there, so we need to add them. They need to be perfectly correct, so capital S speed. They're variables, so if it's not exactly capital S speed, it won't work. And bool needs to be capital J jump. Okay. And with this provided, and with this here, if we save and go into play mode now, we should be able to see these values changing. Right, so nothing's happening with the character yet, but we do see the speed changing, and when I press the jump button, we see the checkbox check. So that's what you want to see. Great, now we can use these things to change the animations. And we'll right click and make a transition to run, and then we'll right click and make a transition back to idle. Both of these transitions we want to uncheck has exit time. This is something that you need to check if you wanted to always complete the animation before it transitions, and we do not. We want it to be more responsive than that, and so I'm unchecking that in both cases. Now in the idle to run, we need to tell it when do we want to switch from the idle animation to the run animation, and that's what this plus does here. And so based on speed greater than, I'm going to go ahead and put 0.1, that's going to transition from here to here. And in the other direction, plus, we're going to go with speed is less than 0.1, so that when we're stopping, it goes back to the idle. The length of time that it fades in between the animations is this time here, this blue area, and it kind of shows you what it's doing by the essential crossfade between the two animation states right there. Okay, with that in place, we should be able to see that working. And so I'll move this over. Let's look at this. So we change to running. If I stop, we go back to idle, which is great. Let's go ahead and turn off the guide character. That's good. Now, about the speed of the running. It looked like it was skating, and that's going to be a balance between the speed of the character right here. So you need to determine how fast you want the character to move in the game, and then we want the legs to look as if they're moving at the appropriate speed. That's going to be adjusted by selecting the animation clip and coming up here and adjusting the speed. And so I'm going to put this at 4 for now. And the idle is also pretty slow, so I'll make it a little bit faster, 1.5. And now if I were to play, that works. So my advice here is you don't want the feet to look like they're sliding on the ground. And if anything, I feel like it's better to have the run animation be faster than slower. Having it look like it's in slow motion skating style doesn't really look like anything. Having the feet move very, very quickly, even compared to how fast the character's moving, can kind of give it more of a cartoonish sort of feel. Let's save, and then let's bring in our other transitions. So we want to go from idle to jump, and we also want to be able to go from run to jump, and that's going to happen. Again, we don't want exit time, but this is going to happen based on the jump. So when jump is true, we'll go from here to here. Same thing here. No exit time, and when jump is true, we'll go from here to here. and then we want to be able to go back, and so we'll select this and make a transition back to idle and back to run. And here we will say that when jump is false, we'll go back here, but we want to go back to idle when we're also not moving. So it'll be two conditionals when speed is less than 0.1. And then over here, we'll go back once again when jump is false. Did I say false on the other one? I did. Okay. And then when speed is greater than 0.1, that's better. And I'm going to turn off exit time on both of those as well. And now if I were to hit play, we can watch the animator window over here to see exactly what's happening, which is great, right? So you see it transition from one to the other, and now it plays the jump and transitions back when I hit the ground, which is great. Now, in terms of the jumping, just like with the speed of the character, you need to make a decision in your game. How high does the character need to jump in order to get from place to place, or clear obstacles or not clear obstacles? And that is going to be controlled in the jump height, and then sort of the speed at which it goes up and down is in the gravity. This needs to be a negative number, and the larger the negative number, the quicker the object will fall down. And so if I didn't want my character to jump as high, if I make the jump height maybe 2 instead of 5, now we'll see it doesn't jump as high, and we also don't quite see the whole jump animation because it's getting cut off because we're just not spending as much time in the air. And so we can go to the jump clip and change the speed of the jump there. If I made it 1.2, you can update this during runtime, maybe even faster. Let's say 1.8. Oh, I think I had the wrong character selected. There we go. I need the moth selected. There's the jump. And so here, I'll say 2 now. Now we get to see the whole animation, because the animation is playing back faster, because we're not spending as much time in the air. So two things need to balance. The speed of the run-walk cycle needs to be balanced with the move speed. And then the jump height needs to be balanced with the animation speed of the jump. Okay, I think that's it. So I'll put this up in a minute.